and she's working full time. So to comfort you, remember that it doesn't take 7 hours a day when they're 4 years old or 7-year-olds or 8-year-old or even 16 years old in order to get a high quality education. So maybe you just get a hooked on phonics, or you find some kind of curriculum and that's your special date time. It won't take that much time when it's one-on-one. And remember that there's reading and math out everywhere, so you make it kind of part of your life. Because that's one of the beauties of homeschooling, isn't it? That it isn't, we find out as we do it, that it just becomes part of our life. We are learning all the time. That's why a lot of homeschoolers, they say, no, I don't stop for the summer. We homeschool all year long, because they're always talking about, oh my gosh, did you see this? Do you want to learn this? That looks really great. Oh, here, do you have this goal? It's always really fun. So I'm so glad that you're doing. I think you're going to have a great experience. I hope that you do. And take the pressure off because one of the common fears of homeschooling is that not doing enough. So I can tell you, no matter if you spend 20 hours a day, the self-talk that you must nip in the bud now is that I just don't think we're doing enough. I think I'm behind. Everybody thinks that. So just enjoy it. Do reading and math. You're going to know. And in so many ways, you know more than a teacher does because you know where he is. You know if there are gaps. If he's in school, a new teacher has to start out all the time, or they have 15, 20, 30 kids. But you know. So you don't have to start all the time. You don't have to start fresh. You get to kind of keep going with it and have that lovely momentum. So odds are you're going to be able to accomplish more with less time. So there are a lot of working homeschoolers. Of course, I was a working homeschooler as well. And my kids turned out fine, and they even have good social skills. So, okay, someone else, would you please share, what's your #1 homeschooling goal? Yes, please.
I have an older son going into 1st grade and a 1-year-old baby. And one of my goals in homeschooling is that they will create a relationship that they otherwise may not have because they would never even be in the same school.
Yeah.
Because of the age gap.
Yeah.
So I'm now trying to figure out what that looks like on a day-to-day basis.
Oh my gosh, that's so great. She said that she has a 1-year-old and an almost 7-year-old, and she wants them to have a really close relationship, even though there's a 6-year gap. So someone just came to our booth yesterday, and she has the same gap. And so what she does is her older child, you can have your 7-year-old read to the new baby. And that's how she's done. It's strengthening his reading, and it's tremendous bonding time. So maybe that's just a simple, maybe that's your action step that you take away from this, is that right away, you get to have your son either together, maybe he's on your lap, or he gets to be the one who reads to the baby. Maybe it's every night before they go to bed. I read to my children every night before they went to bed. I think it was my happiest thing that we did the whole time. I would come back from parties early. One time we had a tent in our living room when we were reading the Harry Potter books. And they remember it too. It was so fond. And my children ended up having great vocabularies because I read the children's classics. I read A Little Princess. I read Secret Garden. I read Three Musketeers. I read hard books that they couldn't read on their own. And I loved it. And the little ones would fall asleep and the older one would stay with it. And it really helped too because he was an auditory learner. And they're all older in their 20s now. I wish they let me read to them. So what I do is I read to homeschool.com on Facebook. I have a story time. So I read to your children. So anytime you want, come on live for the homeschool.com story time, and you type in the name of your kids and I say hi to them from the screen. And it's really kind of fun to have somebody on their laptop saying their name. But yeah, so maybe you just set it up and you have the older ones help with the younger ones. With reading or with math in a nice way. And it teaches them kindness, it teaches them patience. And you say, now remember our goal, we want the kids to love learning. So make sure that you are using positive language, that you're being encouraging, that you're focusing on what they're good at. Because remember, we want little sister or little brother to really love learning. And isn't that a nice legacy to pass on? Now, next, I want to give you what I would call some advice. I have 7 tips for you. And the way I thought we could do it is I'm going to give you, I call it like love advice #1. And then I tell you what the reality is. And then I'm going to give you an action step, an action tip that you can do, okay? So remember, my goal for you is that homeschooling, I believe homeschooling is about love. Homeschooling and loving it. Isn't it the world, really? Wouldn't it be better if we all emphasized love more and joy more? And let's just play with the idea. What would your homeschooling be like if joy and happiness and love were your top priority? How would you think differently? What products would you choose? How would you interact differently on your day? So maybe you just ask that and say, I'm just going to do an experiment this summer. No one has to know that I'm doing this experiment. For just this summer, I'm going to make joy, happiness, and love my top priority and take it from there and see what happens. Because I think you're going to be amazed. You'll end up getting more done. You'll have a closer relationship. You will be so much happier. You don't lose anything. You know, we're raised in this culture where we think that if it isn't hard, it doesn't count. But the reality of it is, of course, that we get more done when we're enjoying ourselves. We think better. We get more done. We have more energy. We fire off more neurons in our brain when we are happy. Okay, so love advice number 1 is smile more. One of the people, they come to the homeschool.com booth, and she gave us a video tip. And when she said she'd been homeschooling for 15 years, and she said, hi, my homeschooling tip for you is to smile more, I realized she's a genius. Yeah, it's so simple because the reality is we frown a lot. You know, when our child comes into a room and we're in there, what do they see on our face? Do they see a welcoming smile and I'm so happy to see you, I love you so much? Or do they see us critiquing them? Right? If my kids came into the room, most of the time they saw me and I was thinking, do they brush their teeth? Do their clothes match? They're dirty. I'm critiquing them. My brow is kind of furrowed. That's the reality. So smile more. And did you know scientifically, if you smile more, you actually create more endorphins. You will feel better, you will feel happier just from this muscle memory of smiling more. So your action step on this is when they come into a room, just practice smiling more. It'll feel like it's fake, but they don't know it. And they smile back. So that's actually the number 1 love advice. Smile more. And when they come in, you smile first. You can talk about the made bed and the teeth brushing later. You can even do it with a smile, but no critiquing first time. Did you know that 70 to 80% of the time we say no? We critique, and it's actually a biological imperative. It's to keep us safe. That's why you have to work hard again and again and again to be happy. Because our biology wants us to be vigilant. We're always afraid that a saber-toothed tiger is going to come and take us out. So you'll have to make it a priority again and again and again to choose happiness, to choose joy, and smiling is just a nice little action step for you. Start it right here. No one even has to know it, and find out what the reaction is. It's hysterical. They smile back and everybody's happier. Okay, love advice number 2. Focus on what you want and not on what you don't want. And the reality is we tend to focus on our fears and weaknesses. Why is that? Again, because we're hypervigilant. We want to protect ourselves. We want to protect our children. That's why you'll have to stop yourself again and again from that fear of not doing enough. The fear of we are so behind. So the action step for you on this is maybe write out your goals. I found that to be an excellent way for me to focus on what it is that we want and not on when we don't want. Because otherwise the reality is you're going to be focusing on the weaknesses all the time. Oh, we're so behind in math. Oh, we're so behind in reading. But they're a genius in science, or they're a genius at building things. And remember, you're never going to be able to teach them everything. It's not possible. Especially in the information age, things are so fast. So you're just going to give them some good basic skills and a love of learning. And I think that you should try to help them develop their strengths, because that's where they're going to shine. If you focus only on weaknesses all the time, strengthening the weaknesses, you end up with mediocrity. You end up with somebody who is kind of mediocre and they're only okay at it. But if you focus on what they're naturally good at, That's where they shine. That's what they're going to be drawn to, and that's what they're probably going to do later in their life. Because remember, even career-wise and job-wise, it used to be that people changed jobs 8 times, and now Bill Gates believes that people are going to change jobs 15 to 20 times in their lifetime. And he believes that the step after that is people won't even have jobs. They will have a core group of people with complementary skills, and they go from company to company to company doing what they are strong at. So that's another piece. Focus on what you want. And not the fears and not the weaknesses. And you'll have to keep doing it again and again. And remember, there's not anything wrong with that. There's not anything wrong with you. It's our biological imperative to be hypervigilant because we're so afraid of the saber-toothed tiger. You know, we're the prairie dog coming out looking all around. So just keep remembering to smile. That will probably be your physical trigger. You're going to smile and think, no, joy, happiness, learning, love, those are our priorities. And keep asking yourself too, what are my children's strengths? What are my strengths? Use your strengths too, because that's where you're going to shine. Love advice number 3. This kind of goes along with it. Catch them being good. And what's the reality? We catch them being bad. And a lot of us were raised with very critical parents. So I ended up being adopted by my aunt and uncle. I mentioned that I had kind of a challenging childhood. And so I ended up being adopted by my aunt and uncle, and they were wonderful. But my uncle was in the military, and so his tendency was to always focus on what I had done wrong. You know, you got to get that room clean, you got to get that bed made. And one time I asked him, I said, hey, how come you never notice? How come you never say when I did clean my room and when I did make the bed? And he said, well, that should just be done automatically. I shouldn't have to, compliment you on that. And then we had a nice discussion, but one of the greatest things about Uncle Ed is that we could have these discussions and he learned from it, and so did I. So he made an effort afterwards. So I would encourage you to catch them being good. Because remember, what you focus on expands. So put your attention on the behavior that you want more of. And so, because the beds are going to be unmade sometime, and they are going to not brush their teeth all the time, but catch them. Nice job making the bed without being asked. Nice job starting your studies without being asked. You know, oh, you were so good to your sibling. Put it into words. Catch them being good. It's one of the biggest changes in your parenting that you can do to make a happier relationship, a happy family. And guess what? Hopefully you're going to be modeling that behavior, and then they're going to thank you too. Mom, thanks so much. What a great dinner. Mom, thank you so much for driving me to gymnastics. And you might even ask for that too. Say, hey, would you thank me when I drive you somewhere? You know, because I'm so happy to do it, but it feels so good when you thank me for the nice dinner, when you thank me for taking out the trash or the dishes. So catch them being good. That means your spouse, that means yourself, model that good behavior. It's one of the biggest changes you can make for a happy family. Love advice number 4, self-fulfilling prophecy. Have you ever heard of self-fulfilling prophecy? It's a prediction that you make about yourself that eventually, invariably, comes true. So a lot of people, they make negative self-fulfilling prophecies. So that's the reality, right? The reality is homeschooling is hard. Homeschooling is a sacrifice. Homeschooling is a challenge. I'm sacrificing myself to homeschool. Math is hard. You know, girls are just bad at science. So statements like that create a negative prophecy. You have just told your subconscious what you expect it to experience. So all that's going to do, your subconscious is going to find examples for you when science was hard, math was hard, you're bad at this, and I can prove it to you. Let's say that you go and you buy a red car. Suddenly you come back and you see red Priuses everywhere. Those red Priuses were there all the time, but you didn't see them because you weren't looking for them. And I have really good parking karma. I'm very proud of my parking karma. And so one time I was driving in on a Saturday to get my hair done, and I started to have a negative self-fulfilling prophecy. I'm never going to find a parking space today on Saturday. And then I literally stopped the car safely, and I went, no, I've got good parking karma. And when I opened my eyes, I discovered that there was an empty parking spot in front of me the whole time. And I didn't see it because I didn't expect to. So that positive self-fulfilling prophecy, focus on what you want, because then you're going to open your eyes and you're going to find those opportunities. You're going to find the boating camp in the middle of Sacramento if you open your eyes to its existence. Love advice number 5, focus on growth. Once again, we were raised in our educational system that we tend to focus on absolutes. You are either good or you are bad. You're either good at math, you're bad at math. You're either an A student or an F student. And children, too, developmentally, they tend to have that binary thinking. But what we're going to do with our homeschooling, I really advise you for this, focus on growth. Because growth is what you really want. Everybody's bad at something when they first try it. So one of the positive self-fulfilling statements that you can make is, well, you know, the more you do something, the easier it gets. The more you do something, the better you get at it. So yeah, focus on growth. That's why I love lap books and why I love portfolios. So that's my tip for you too, is put together those little simple portfolios. I used to just write down, here's all the books that we read this semester. Here are the ones that he or she read by themselves. These are the field trips we took this semester. Here's a copy of their handwriting before and after. Here's the math that you used to know. Look how you've grown. Look at the math you know now. My gosh, isn't that great? Because then you're going to feel so much better, and so are they. And the portfolios, my kids come back to their baby boxes, they love the portfolios. I just got copier paper, and I took either a Polaroid or I got a photo, and then I just put, you know, when they couldn't do it, they were younger, I just put a little headline. I took a picture of it, and they loved it. And you know why it's also really important too? Is it documents it, it lets them show off for others. Because school kids get report cards. They have a lot of validation all the time of their learning. But if you have these little simple portfolios, they have something to show their friends, their aunts and uncles, their neighbors, the grandparents. If they do those lovely little lap books, you know, where you get a manila file and you have them do their neat rainforest reports or their bird reports, you know, on their side, these little projects, and you leave them out. And that way everybody comes by, they're like, ooh, you learned that. It also makes homeschooling look good. And it comforts people, because remember, when you're homeschooling, sometimes they're afraid that you're going to mess up their kids. You know, they're afraid that they're not going to learn anything. And this kind of shows that, no, learning's organic. Look at all the neat things you know. Look at all the growth you have. So I really recommend, doesn't have to be hard, just starting right now, maybe you have a little summer portfolio. And you just kind of document their learning and you let them show it off. And what is that? Of course, it's focusing on what you want. It's catching them being good. It has a positive self-fulfilling prophecy. And they get to show off, and they're going to get a lot of kudos from the people in their lives. Oh my gosh, they're going to get positive statements, aren't they? Oh, you're so smart. Oh, you're learning so much. Oh, I'm so proud. So I really love those little lap books or bulletin boards or little science centers, just some way of kind of proving how much they are learning, because they really are. You think that they're not learning, but they are learning so much all the time. Okay, I've got a bonus love advice for you too. Oh, love advice number 6. Not time for bonus time yet. It's trust yourself and trust your kids. And you're figuring that out, aren't you? And the reality is that we are constantly worried that we are behind, and we force ourselves to finish curriculum. Because sometimes we seem to think that the curriculum is the magic wand. No, we are the magic wand. And then ultimately, they are the magic wand. So trust yourself. If you're struggling, if it's not working, you don't have to finish it. You can modify it. You know, usually the easiest way is just modify it. Trust yourself, be brave, modify it, alter it. Use the parts that you like and don't do the parts that you don't like. Because remember, even if you check all those boxes, that's no guarantee that they're going to be at grade level. That's no guarantee that they're going to succeed at life. That curriculum is just a comfort for you. It's a structure to give you ideas of, oh, this looks really good. In other words, somebody went through and they worked really hard to organize the knowledge, and isn't that great? But make sure that you are using the curriculum, it isn't using you. So trust yourself and work together with your child. Remember, what's working for you? What isn't? What do you love best about our homeschooling? What would you like to see changed? So that you get to start off on that wonderfully co-creative, respectful homeschool. And remember, you're going to have a beautiful relationship because that's what's going to serve you the best, isn't it? Close relationship with your child, with your children, and for them to have close relationships. Love advice number 7. Oh, use community resources. The reality is, once again, we're afraid to stray from the curriculum. Sometimes we're afraid to leave the house because, oh my gosh, it's June, so now we're going to wreck our entire summer, and we're gonna chain ourselves inside, and we're just going to finish that, right? But, use the community resources, use your neighbors, your grandparents, because that is the huge advantage, isn't it? We're not locked into a classroom. We're not locked into a seat. We're not locked into a Monday through Friday 8 to 3 schedule. And homeschooling is so huge, and down in this area, because I homeschooled in California, fabulous resources, fabulous science centers. The museums offer microscope classes. Oh my gosh, homeschooling is huge here. We're the top 3 states. It's California, Texas, and Florida. Everybody homeschools. There's no stigma involved. So don't feel like you have to lock yourself to the curriculum. And if you find somebody who's passionate about quilting and you have a child that's interested in quilting, let them study with that role model. Let that person share their woodworking, their quilting, their cooking, their math, their science. Visit people's jobs. Remember, because we have the number one advantage for homeschooling, freedom. Freedom, and we get to customize their curriculum. How lucky are we? I feel sorry when it comes sometimes to the kids in the classroom. They don't have all the freedoms we have. So take advantage of that freedom. Trust yourself. Be brave. If it's not working, you can make a change. You can course correct. Nothing is written in stone. Okay. So now I'd like to hear some questions. What questions do you have about what we've covered? And how can